This week's Big Little Recipe comes from baker, cookbook author, and winner of the Great American Baking Show, Valerie Lomas. If you're like me at this point in the summer, you have bought way too many blueberries. Today, Valerie is going to be walking you through an amazing recipe from her book to put them to good use. So take it away, Valerie.
I'm going to show you guys how to make a 1-bowl blueberry buckle. This is one of my favorite desserts to make during the summer, and it's a recipe in my cookbook, Life is What You Bake It. So the coolest thing about this, it's not just 1 bowl, it's also 1 pan, 1 measuring cup, and even 1 measuring spoon. So we don't have to worry about coating the pan with butter and flour or any of that kind of stuff. I'm just gonna take a stick of butter and put it in a loaf pan. I'm gonna put it in the oven so that the butter melts. It's important to keep an eye on the butter when it's in the oven. Probably only needs about 5 or 7 minutes because you don't want those milk solids that are in the butter to burn. So this recipe, I'm calling it a Southern dessert. I'm from Louisiana. I learned to make it in Louisiana, and we've got something called self-rising flour that a whole bunch of folks have in their pantries. And so we're using self-rising flour in this recipe. But if you don't have self-rising flour, you can just use a cup of all-purpose flour and then add 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. But with self-rising flour, that baking powder and salt are already in here, helping to make our recipe like even easier. So I just scooped the flour in, and now I'm gonna level it out. And by doing the scoop and level method, we're getting an accurate measurement on the volume of our flour. But of course, you can also weigh the flour if you have a scale. I'm gonna add 1 cup of granulated sugar. Did I mention that pretty much every ingredient we put in here is just 1 cup? There's really not much that you have to even remember for this recipe. Still gonna level it off to make sure I get an even amount. Sugar goes right in with the flour. I'm gonna add 1 cup of milk. You can even use plant-based milk, like almond milk or soy milk or oat milk. That will work just fine in this recipe. And I'm gonna add 1 teaspoon of salt. There's already 1/4 teaspoon from that self-rising flour. I'm just gonna add another teaspoon. And I'm just gonna whisk this all together. All right, so this is done. I'm gonna check on my butter and see if it's melted. Okay, so my butter is nice and melted, and remember to use an oven mitt when you take it out because the pan is very hot. I'm just swishing the butter around the pan, and again, that kind of just helps essentially kind of grease the pan. And I am going to take the rest of my mix, and I'm just gonna pour it right into my loaf pan. And I wanna mix it kind of good, but not all the way. We're gonna add 1 cup of blueberries, and you can actually add a few more berries if you want. We're gonna just carefully kind of sprinkle them right on top. I'm gonna bake this until it's nice and golden and brown all over the top, and the batter has risen up over the blueberries. So my buckle is golden brown all over the top, and if you jiggle it, the center is set. So the only thing left to do is to scoop some out and have some. This is so good, warm, straight from the oven. Oh, look at those blueberries. This is so good.